I'm so happy to introduce Andrea Marcusa tonight and to let you know that today is her birthday.
Oh.
Andrea's fiction, memoir, and poetry have appeared in Cut Bank, River Styx, River Teeth, the Baltimore Review, Citron Review, Newsverse, and others. She received recognition from the writing competitions at Glimmer Train, Third Coast, New Letters, Raleigh Review, and the Southampton Review. She serves as reading series director for the Writers Studio, where she is also a member of the faculty. Andrea?
Tonight I'm going to read 4 very short fiction pieces. They're usually referred to as flash fiction. And for those of you who know me well, you know that there's a very porous boundary between whatever is going on in the world and my sense of reality. So right now I've got several apps running COVID-19 statistics, but I feel like I have to premise this because most of the stories that I'm reading are sort of ripped right from the headlines. And so they tend to be a little dark and dramatic, and I'm actually not that way. So I'm not going to go home and commit suicide, I promise. The first piece I wrote pretty soon after Sandy Hook, and the story is called His Name. The most pointless thing of all was how he wasn't allowed to have his name stitched on his school knapsack. Strangers can steal a child that way. So were the vaccinations for diphtheria, meningitis, polio, and the morning vitamin he hated, a chewable pink bear. Or that car seat that he was made to sit in on rides to school, even though his friends no longer had to use one. So futile. But there was something about his name. He taught himself to write it all by himself when he was 2. Wanted everyone to use his full name, not a nickname, but not a shortened version, a good strong one for a boy. Greek like an apostle after a king, and his grandfather in Alaska. But that morning in the classroom, with them all scattered around, there was no way to tell, no trace of it anywhere on him. But inside the neck of his too big, long-sleeve striped jersey, a strange, gloved hand peeled back the collar where he was found limp and face down, and that's when they spotted it, in black markered script. Dear child, in those first few minutes, even your name was gone, displaced by one on a hand-me-down from your brother, now a 4th grader in a classroom on the other end of the school where he was crouched, trembling, hiding in a closet. The next story I'm going to read is called Freedom. This appeared in Citron Review. When the deep freeze thawed, the woman, who'd been imprisoned for months in the dank basement, pushed through the splintered window frame, cracked by the melting and refreezing ice. How startled she must have been to feel snow sting her bare feet and the glare of the noonday sun strike her eyes as she ran across the yard toward the open road. The owner of the dog that spotted the woman from the road would always be astonished by the miracle of timing that allowed his retriever, Sammy, to sense the woman's fingers gripping the shards of window glass and then strain on his leash towards her for a better look. The man would forever remember it, how he was just about to jerk Sammy back when he heard that cry across the road. And having pushed herself through that small opening, the way the woman's footprints left a bloody trail across the snowy yard, like most paths to freedom. The next story is called 87th Street, New York City, January 3rd, and it recently ran in Cutback. They lie in street gutters, exhausted, anorexic, and balding like feather-plucking birds, once thick and green and smelling of pine, now with limbs that snap like toothpicks and shed a flurry of brown needles on white snow. Worse are still partially decorated trees with silver icicles tangled on branches, broken bulbs swinging, a string of dead lights snaking its way towards the trunk, leftovers like washed-up seaweed after a storm, or a forest devoured by swarms of locusts. But worst of all is my neighbor's full green one, which I've walked past for weeks after it was dumped early, before heat and lights could wither it, because of the daughter. Mowed down on a street corner, the driver as young as the victim and as high as December stars. The building handyman took the tree down and laid on a street corner 2 weeks before the holiday. That bejeweled tree, too vibrant, too cheery to remain upright and lit. And 2 days after New Year's, the tree's still there, rich and dense, among the other tired art discarded ones, reminding me it's been a harsh holiday season. In the next weeks, the dumped trees will be chewed up and spat out and turned into wood chips. A sanitation worker will feed each one, watching the jaws shred wood, needles, and bark, and then spray it into green and brown piles for bagging. All that joy, happiness, and heartbreak. Bound, chipped, scattered. The last story is called Hurricane Girl, and this was recently read in Vestal Review and has been nominated for a Pushcart. You remember the hurricane barreling up toward the Connecticut coast when you were 8. You remember the rain pouring down the gutters, slamming the screens so you had to close all the windows. You remember the news updates, the sirens at noon, and then how the rain stopped and a muggy mist descended, along with the quiet that settled as the storm surge rose and pushed up the lower streets, climbed the hill, and flooded the road. You remember the brown cardboard boxes and porch furniture and all the recycling bottles and cans floating past. You remember thinking that you were glad that your house was high on a hill, because all around you was water. You remember the TV turning off, the lights too, and your mother dashing around to fill pots in the pantry with fresh water, and the bathtubs and her empty wine bottles, because there was no telling when the storm surge would recede or how long the water supply would stay clean. It was like you were camping or a pioneer on the prairie, but you were in your own house, and out the window, everything looked strange. You were suddenly a boat out to sea, all alone because your neighbors had boarded up their homes and left a day ago. It was the most exciting thing that ever happened to you, because your mother was there, in charge, happy, breathless, dashing about, pulling open drawers and placing red Christmas candles in holders, filling the cooler with ice and handing you your very own flashlight, while saying you both feast on fondue at dinner with a special sterno-powered pot. You were caught up in all the busy work, pulling your bike and the lawn chair she sunned on in the backyard onto the porch, battening down the hatches, your mother called it. She was your very own Noah with her ark, and you were her right-hand girl, her hurricane girl. You had not yet dropped the plastic pitcher of her precious water, so it spilled all over the kitchen floor. She had not yet shrieked, "You idiot!" and then sent you to the front porch, where the screen door slammed behind you, and was so swollen with moisture you couldn't get back in, leaving you to feel the slap of her harsh voice, so buried in and burned, while you watched the rain start up again and the water slowly rising, first up one and then another stair. A submerged gray garbage can was bumping up against the cement foundation. There was a wooden broom and a large plastic bottle half full with blue antifreeze bobbing, and a dead black and white cat floating at the fourth stair. You had not yet cried for your mother to save the cat, or tried to reach the rear door by way of the stairs leading to the back, only to be met by more roiling brown foamy water. You had not yet banged on the front screen door, yelled for her, "Mom!" or tapped on the windows, banged on the brown shingles siding, rung and rung the silenced doorbell. You had not yet seen your mother's scowling face as she, after what seemed like an eternity, opened the door without a word. Sometimes, years after you left that house, you imagine the seawater breaching the front porch and then racing all the way from the front stairs to the back ones, the foam slicking your knees, sucking past, trying to pull you under. But mostly you think of that dead cat, its eyes startled open, blank, hollow. such a small, beautiful creature cut off from firm ground. Thank you.